Hello, Dr. Tamra Harville here to talk about in-text citations with paraphrasing and quoting. So basically, anytime you use an outside source, someone else's work, to support your paper, you need to give them credit. The main two ways to do this is by paraphrasing what they say, which is putting it in your own words, or by quoting them directly. So, why do we need citations? In a word, it's plagiarism. So plagiarism, whether it's intentional or not, is using someone else's work without giving them proper credit. It is the law. It is not your professor being mean. It's something we all have to do. And I thought these two images were cute. The student saying, "What do you mean my facts are wrong? I copied everything straight off the internet." Yeah, plagiarism might give you even more than an F. There are consequences, which are usually in your syllabus. All right, so in-text citations. Why do you need them? Well, it tells your reader who said it, or why, they said it, what source it was in, where they can find the source. Information that they may want, because they may want to find that source and read more on it. Okay, paraphrasing is one part of citations. This is when you express the meaning and the content of what an author or speaker is saying, but you use different wording, usually your own style, your own voice, your own tone, because it sounds kind of weird when everything is your tone and then all of a sudden this real technical language comes in. Sometimes it just breaks the flow. So if you can say it in your own words, do it. But if you just can't say it any better, then you would want to quote it. So for example, say I'm writing a paper concerning the use of cameras in the Smithsonian Museum, and I want the support of a professional who believes that the flashing light from cameras will make the items in the exhibit fade. So here's the direct quotation. According to William Bonnet, director of the chemistry department of the University of Ohio, camera flashes are much brighter than that of a typical light bulb, and over time, repetitive exposure can cause colors to fade, a detriment to a museum exhibit. Note that the period goes on the outside, not the inside of the quote, because we have a page number here. This is what the 13 stands for. So this is what's called a formal introduction. Your person is formally introduced to your reader, and you want to do that every time you use a source for the first time. If you don't have an author, you just simply say, the article, whatever the title of the article is, states blah blah blah. Okay, so you want to paraphrase this, you want to put it in your own words. Well, you could say, William Bonnet, director of the chemistry department of the University of Ohio, believes that the flashes from camera equipment could cause damage to colors, which would make a display at a museum exhibit fade over time. So it's saying the same thing, but not exactly word for word what they wrote. It's putting it in however you might want to say it. Notice you still give William Bonnet credit. You still say what page number you found it on. That is avoiding the plagiarism. All right. So paraphrasing. Paraphrasing again, there's different ways you can do it. So this one is the same exact quote, only we're taking some of it out. Believes that flashes from cameras could cause damage to colors because camera flashes are much brighter than that of a typical light bulb, which should make a display at a museum exhibit fade over time. Notice this is a little bit different. The quoting part from here to here tells your reader it is exactly word for word what Bonnet wrote, but the rest is your words. So basically what you're doing is you're taking Bonnet's words and you're taking your words and you're integrating them together to make an integrated quote. Another paraphrase, the flashes from cameras could cause damage to colors because camera flashes are much brighter than that of a typical light bulb, which would make a display at a museum fade over time. Now notice the difference. This one has a William Bonnet in the paper, so all you need at the end is the page number, if you have one. This one does not have him in the sentence. He is added at the bottom, Bonnet 13. No comma in between the two. Period is always on the outside. But sometimes you just don't want to keep saying Bonnet says this, Bonnet claims that, so you can just put him in parentheses. He has to be there somewhere, either in the sentence or at the end, not both. So That way you can just use part of his quote. Okay, going on. A direct quote. Regardless how long the quote is, you always quote at the end or cite it at the end, and then you can add them to your works cited. So this one is a different type of quote from a different person. Once a squire becomes a knight, he then gets to wear a gold chain around his neck and white belt to signify his level of profession, which is universally recognized. It is now that he can take on his own squires and present them with their red apprentice belt. So with this one, if you just put the quote in all by itself, it's called a dropped quote because you're dropping it in your paper, and you don't want to do that. You always want some of your words, even if it's just a little bit. So in quotations, make sure that you have something at the end if there's a page number. And this particular one has the word fair with quotation marks around it. It's not an author's name. So what this is telling us is that it's an article starting with the word fair on your works cited page. So this already tells your reader there is no author to this document, because that does happen a lot. But you don't want to just drop it in, like I said. So even if it's something as simple as a quote from Fare Thee Well states, and then you put the quote, that's fine. But so long as it's just not stuck in there by itself. And if you don't have a page number, where's my cursor? Notice the period does go inside the quote because there's nothing else to include. Okay, so say you're wanting to use a quote, but there's stuff in the middle that you just don't want. So here's what you can do. It's called an ellipses, or it's the 3 dots, and you can see it in this paragraph. So we have a quote, "It's a dangerous idea to keep asking the law to do etiquette's job. Not that I wouldn't love to have a squad of tough cops who would go around and roust people who don't answer invitations and write thank you notes." By Martin, source page 774. So we know we can go to the works cited page, find Martin, and it's page 774. That is a dropped quote, by the way, which you don't put in papers. It's just an example here. So you want to leave part of it out just to make it sound more academic, because you don't want to say, "Not that I wouldn't love to have." So you can say, "It's a dangerous idea to keep asking the law to do etiquette's job. A squad of tough cops who would go around and roust people who don't answer invitations and write thank you notes." Just make sure when you use ellipses to remove some words that it still flows together. Now, another thing you can do is brackets. And this is when you need to change, reword something, or add something because it needs to make sense. So say you have a source, Smith, Marcus, Jameson, Figura, Richard, and Zuniga. That's a lot of people. And they quote in a section about tighter gun control in the United States. The word is, "It erodes Second Amendment rights," on page 76. That's their words. So what is the "it"? Sometimes you need to tell us what that pronoun stands for. So if you just said, "The authors state it erodes Second Amendment rights," your reader may be going, "Wait, what? What is it?" So you might want to make that change. So you could say, "The authors state tighter gun control in the United States erodes Second Amendment rights." So you change the "it" for what it is that they're really talking about. And that clarifies what you're trying to say. Notice this citation, Smith et al. This means Smith and the other guys, page 76. And et al. Does have a period at the end of al. Okay, so to summarize what you should learn. When you're using someone else's work, whether it's your own words or a quote, you must cite them every time. Don't plagiarize. Don't just drop in quotes. Always introduce them if you're going to use a full quote. If the author's name or title, if there is no author, is in the text somewhere, only the page number, if there is one, is needed in parentheses. Paraphrase means putting someone else's content into your own words. Quoting is putting quotation marks around their exact words. Use ellipses to cut words or brackets to add or change. And when in doubt, cite it. And if you have any questions, ask your professor or go to the Writing Center and get some help. I hope this has explained a little bit of citations to you, and thank you for your time.